I'm Patrick McDowell and I'm a sustainable fashion designer based in London.
Patrick, what does being in bloom mean to you beyond the literal sense?
For me, being in bloom is all about finding my creative vision and having the space and time to think creatively and explore new and exciting ideas.
So speaking of blooming and blossoming, so what part of yourself do you think is currently blossoming?
I think right now, my vision of a more sustainable circular fashion industry is blossoming, and I think the recognition for how we're doing that is blossoming, which is really special and heartwarming to see.
Which part of yourself do you think is still a seed wanting to grow, wanting to see more things?
I think we're still hoping to grow our collaborations and work more globally with incredible businesses and brands to, have more of a global audience.
Who or what has been the sunshine in your growth recently?
Recently, my sunshine has been my friendships and my relationship. It's, fashion can be a difficult business, and having people around you that can support you and nurture you is super important, and I've been very lucky to have people like that recently. I nurture my creativity by trying to have new experiences, trying to do things outside of the studio and going to places I've never been to before.
Patrick, is there a lesson that nature has taught you that you've carried into your work?
Yes, I think nature has taught me that not everything happens all at once, and sometimes you have to really nurture and look after something for it to grow properly. So this is a Mycelium leather from Ecovative, which is an amazing company we work with from America. Leather has a high impact on the planet, and so it's always really interesting to work with companies that are trying to create something different from a much less impactful beginning, like Mycelium. The bit we eat is like the flower, and then there's like this foam stuff that they've engineered that grows to like this big, and then it gets sliced off and compressed.
How do they color it?
That gets coloured at a tannery, so the squat compressed. This is an amazing silk jacquard from a vintage wedding dress. We actually remade this wedding dress into a new gown for our last show, which was really exciting. Sometimes the most amazing materials are actually just the ones that already exist. And then this chrysanthemum print that we developed for the latest collection is printed on a material which is made from trees using low energy and water and traceable all the way back to the tree. So we've kind of got something that is new, but is new in a less harmful way. Right now I'm really inspired by tulips. We used them as a motif in our last collection, and I've always loved how singular they are, and when looked after, they're quite a strong flower, I think. And I guess they also symbolize kind of spring and new growth, and I think there's something a bit cliche and also really beautiful about that as a fashion designer.
Patrick, actually, I can tell you a very interesting fact about tulips. When we make arrangements with them, we have to be quite careful, as we need to set them in quite deep in a vase because they continue to grow. Does it mean anything to you?
That they keep growing?
Yes.
It's a nice story, I guess.
I'm going to ask you a different question. Does white symbolize anything to you as color?
I think white, for me, is more of a blank canvas, and for me, white flowers have always been the prettiest. I think white and green does something in my brain. It makes me feel calm, and it's almost like I can see the flower in its true beauty without colour, and so I just always preferred them like this.
So Patrick, what is your favorite flower to have featured in one of your collections?
Most recently it was the chrysanthemum, which my grandma had at her wedding day in 1947. It's always been really special for me to tell stories through my pieces, and flowers, I think, tell stories very well. So at our last collection launch, we were very lucky to have one of our pieces hand painted at the event. The artist used the chrysanthemums as the inspiration to then paint onto this piece. So as the event unraveled, so did the painting onto the skirt. Incorporate them, so we developed this print, for example, that has almost like the ghost of a chrysanthemum, and I think it's quite a challenge because then I think they're not kind of typically beautiful flowers, so they kind of have different connotations for different people, and so it's been quite interesting to play with them and develop the prints.
What flower would you love to see more in fashion?
I would love to see more of the freesia in fashion. I think we all remember that scene from Devil Wears Prada where Miranda Priestley very dismissively talks about freesias, but for me they've always been really beautiful. I think they smell very nice and they remind me of an orchid. I think, yeah, we could do with some more in the fashion industry. We have used them in the past on the piece we made for Sarah Jessica Parker, and they went down very well. So
we've obviously been speaking a lot about flowers. So how do you think floral symbolism is shifting in the modern culture and designs?
I think right now people are craving real experiences and a connection to nature, and so we're seeing a real increase in people's interest in plants and flowers, and consequently how they're displayed in fashion. As a designer that creates something, it's always a privilege to kind of reference the natural world, and flowers are the most beautiful part of it. So it's kind of natural in an age of technology that people would gravitate towards these kind of beautiful natural things.
Patrick, how do flowers exist in your life beyond your creative practice?
Flowers are really important for me. I love to have them in my apartment, at special events. I think they're a great way to kind of symbolize something important. And yeah, I'd say they had an important part in my life, and that's why I use them in my work rather than the opposite way around. As a kid, I played brass instruments, and then for one of our collections, we were inspired by the orchestra, and the whole show was about that. It was at the Guildhall School of Music, and we found a very old and damaged tuba with this incredible floral engraving. And so we worked with a metal worker to take it apart and recraft it into a corset, which was then one of the runway looks. I started, I made a bag from a pair of jeans when I was 13. So there's always been this story of kind of like remaking things. So every show we try and keep that story by remaking something old into something new.